The sound of racing engines at Silverstone as the cars leave the pit lane in wet conditions for the first formation lap for the Adrian Flux Trophy for Motor Racing Legends historic touring cars. Here's our grid. Julian Thomas leads the Sierra RS 500's charge ahead of David Tomlin. The Mensley Lions duo lining up third. Steve dances for Capri. And the GA Capri lines up in fourth place ahead of period 70s rival, the Buncombe Watts BMW CSL, and behind them the Bartram & Kane RS 500. Sierra Corsworth RS 500s right at the front of the field. Richard Kent in the Broadspeed Capri. Steve Soper will share the E30 M3 in 10th place. The best of the Nissan Skylines, Rick Wood in 12th with four-wheel drive. The Skyline GTRs should really romp away here if the racing gets underway. Everybody else will be struggling to produce a grip to match the horsepower, like the Rover SD1 and the Chevy Camaro. Lots of horsepower, not so much grip. The DTM cars, like the BMW M3s and the Sol Evo 2 Mercedes 190E, will be struggling. The Vauxhall Cavalier, the Acuria Cost car with the Saltire of Scotland on, the front-wheel drive car, could do really well here actually. These conditions might well help, but again, look out for Nick Strom coming from 26 on the grid with that four-wheel drive of the Nissan Skyline. Pretty much everything else is rear-driven, and they are going to struggle for grip. Well, the period here is essentially early 70s to late 90s, so there's a real disparity of cars and performance. Then there is the second group of cars, which are more 1960s. That's where you will find the Lotus Cortinas and a Singleton BMW. That is going to be a Singleton Alfa Romeo, I beg your pardon. That is going to be an interesting battle also to look out for. So if you are around the Silverstone circuit, undercover or under your umbrella, then look out for the Cortinas as well. We see lots more Lotus Cortinas later on in the meeting in the pre-66 Saloon Car Championships. But here in the Historic Touring Car Challenge, the Adrian Flux Trophy, it is more about cars like the ex-Andy Rouse British Touring Car Championship winning RS 500 Sierra and all of its ilk. Then the Cologne Capri versus BMW CSL battle, echoing the battles of the 70s, and the late 80s, early 90s DTM battles, E30 M3s versus the Mercedes. Look out there, you can see the blue and white, the Ray Mallock built Cavalier run by the Hugh McCaig's Acuria Cost team. David Leslie and Bobby Verdenroe particularly driving those cars, and with front-wheel drive that may well be working its way quickly up through the field. And the other cars to look out for are the Nissan Skylines, again with four-wheel drive. You can see the blue Calsonic car. Rick Wood has always gone well in these cars. There are two other Skylines in the field. And again, you may see a variety of very different racing lines. You just saw one there with our pole sitter Julian Thomas going very wide around the outside of Luffield. Why? Because that's not the racing line. And Alistair Douglas, the racing line is covered in rubber and to a degree a little bit of oil as well, and that makes it less grippy in the rain when it's covered by a surface of water than the offline areas. And so we will talk about maybe the karting line, which is shorthand for going offline and looking for grip.
Yes, and the well-used racing line in the dry gets slightly polished as well, and so drivers tend to look for the grip offline, and that might be a very wide line. I know at Stowe Corner particularly, the wet line there is quite a wide line around that long right-hander into the Vale, and it'll be the same at probably Luffield as well. A wide run after Brooklands might be the quicker available line. More difficult at Beckett's, where we're seeing the cars go through now, the wonderful Beckett's sweepers. Because that's right, left, it's more difficult to stay offline all the way through the corner. And Beckett's is reckoned to be one of the great corner sequences in the world, and you can see the cars making their way through there now. So more difficult to stay offline through there. But once you get onto the Hanger Straight, the long run down into Stowe Corner, which we're seeing now slightly downhill, the fastest part of the circuit, we may see the drivers running very wide into the left-hand side of the track as they see it, right-hand from our camera position.
Lights off on the safety car. In the murk, we have some 52 touring cars ready to start this Adrian Flux Trophy if we get the green flags. So far, green flags all the way around the track. At this stage in our formation lap for the Formula Juniors, it was red flags, but it looks like we are ready to go. The Adrian Flux Trophy for MRL historic touring car race is about to get underway here at a streaming wet Silverstone. Poleman Julian Thomas in the Caliber Ford Sierra, run by Andy Rouse, to the British Touring Car Championship title, leads away from David Tomlin. Tomlin looking around the outside as they head down the straight into Abbey for the very first time, tippy-toeing their way around, and the Welsh colours and the tortoise on the outside. He looks like he's found enough grip, but not quite. It is Julian Thomas who holds the lead. Third place is the black car, Paul Mensley and Michael Lyons, not sure who started that. And then the BMW CSL coming through from row 3 of the grid. Well, Alistair, a clean enough start so far, but Julian Thomas in the lead, jumping away as car number 22, the Mensley Lions RS500, moves up to second.
Yes, indeed, and I'm looking out for that BMW CSL because slightly less power, as we heard Alex Bumcombe tell us, than these Sierra Cosworths. But
somebody's gone off on the outside and doesn't appear to have hit anything. That's one of the M3s. So a small drop off the road, but here comes the BMW CSL, so a 3-litre straight 6 fuel-injected BMW. It was absolutely the car to go for in the early 70s in the European Touring Car Championship, battling against the Cologne Caprice, but there is the horsepower as the turbo spools up on the RS500 Sierra Cosworth, just absolutely disappears in front and leaves the BMW in a ball of spray.
And I wonder who started that red Sierra, because it's a combination of Dave Bartram and Michael Caine, both names well known in all forms of racing, but they don't race very often. And as you said yesterday, I wonder which pub they were sat in when they decided to have a go at the Silverstone Festival this year. But both very experienced drivers, particularly Michael Caine. Dave Bartram perhaps better known for team management.
The Brown and Gammons car coming around the outside, number 85. This is David Brown, moves up into what is now 4th position, is that? Looks like it. No, he's up to 3rd, I think, unless there's somebody in the spray behind the Mensley and Lyons car. Daniel Brown, beg your pardon. So Brown and Gammons car up to 3rd place. And here is the Redcoat car in 4th. And that means that David Tomlin slipping down to 5th position. We have got a couple of pit lane corners. Julian Thomas romping away with this at the moment. As we said, it is a pit stop race. It's a 50-minute race that is scheduled to be. Hopefully, now that they're actually up to speed, generating a bit of heat and tyre grip, then it is pretty damp. Well, there is the leader. He's been caught, Julian Thomas.
And Paul Mensley and Michael Lyons in the black Netcom Sierra. I have spotted the yellow helmet in the red Sierra, so that is starting that one with Michael Caine. And in the Netcom Sierra, difficult to see through into the car there, whether it's Michael driving, but through on the inside.
Yeah, great looking move on the inside, but he has to then turn out tighter, can't get the hammer down quite as quickly onto the Wellington straight, but Julian Thomas runs out very wide, runs out of grip on the grass, loops into a half spin, and that will be a proper Code Brown moment for the driver. He'll select first gear and try and rejoin, but nobody is going to see him there in the spray. You can see how even the high intensity rear lights, that's the equivalent of a fog light on your car, it absolutely disappears. Now the real danger here is that marshals posts cannot see each other and they can't relay the flag signals, and that's a real issue. Another of the M3s spins off, but you did see that Rick Wood in car number 123, the black Skyline, or dark blue Calsonic Skyline, there he is, that four-wheel drive car. Okay, it's heavier, it's not lower power than Sierra Cosworth, but it is putting it through all four wheels, and these are absolutely the conditions that a Skyline driver would want to see. Okay, Julian Thomas gets a little bobble midway through the corner, doesn't he, as he exits Aintree, The car's already offline. He's got nowhere to go but the runoff area, and luckily there is plenty of it there for these cars. I don't think there was a touch, but just hit standing water. The car twitches sideways, and he's a passenger. He did really well to recover from that. I think that was as much judgment and luck, but again, another big moment mid-corner there. You have to watch that pair of headlights to see who comes down towards us, to see who it was. Well, that was the Eggenberger Sierra. So that's Mike Manning having a big moment. I know that my friend Toby Moody in the dry over at the wing is getting very excited about lots of E30 M3s. The 2.5 litre Bastos BMW that you'll see a little further down the field, that won the Spa 24 Hours in period. And there's a couple of Fina and Bastos E30 M3s. Ex-Steve Soper car going well at the moment.
And had confirmation of some of the start drivers for this race, and it is Paul Mensley who is in the leading car, number 22, and Michael Caine, we've already said, in the red Sierra. Alex Buncombe has started the CSL.
Just saw car number 8, Darren Fielding, and here is Mike Manning in the ex-Steve Soper Eggenberger Sierra. Steve Soper, Klaus Ludwig at the end of the Group A era. Steve had been a long-time BMW driver. Ford hired him to race the Eggenberger built and run Sierras. And there's another ex-Soperman car. And a very slow BMW CSL. He's really struggling. This is the battle for 6th position then. Darren Tomlin losing the traction battle in that Sierra Cosworth. In dry conditions, the M3 would stand no chance, and the Skyline would be hampered by the extra weight penalty. Car number 123, the Calsonic Skyline of Rick Wood. Where's he come from up on the grid? Rick was in 12th place, so he's been cautious making up spots. A little further back, there's the BMW 1800 or 2002 that is battling with the Lotus Cortinas, but the front-running cars are already in that mix. So we're now seeing our front runners, the BMWs, the Sierra Cosworths, the Nissan, working their way through the 60s cars. So those Lotus Cortinas are going to have their eyes on the mirrors. So single BMW 2002. One car that we're not seeing, that we didn't see in qualifying either, is the Graham Pattle Mark Burton Holden Commodore VLSS, which I was really looking forward to. Aussie Super Tourer, but didn't make it out in qualifying and has not been able to be ready to start the race. But again, the race leader, Paul Mensley, in that black Sierra Cosworth, starting to romp away from the field now. And visibility is his friend. You can see he's got the side window cracked well down to try and get some airflow. Won't worry about rain coming in and making his overalls wet. It's all about being able to see where you're going, and the Brown and Gammon's car is in the gravel. And that might be a safety car. That's not coming out, is it? So Dan Brown sliding off in a looping spin, and that's the drama with these turbocharged Ford Sierra Cosworth RS 500s. It's not a modern turbo, it's nothing. Oh, here we go. And I'm afraid Daniel Brown in the gravel, out of that top 6 battle. Had a really good start to the race, but not going so well now. And in terms of the BMWs, the Simon Watts Al Buncombe BMW CSL currently running in 3rd place. And if we do get a safety car, then Paul Mensley, our race leader here, is going to lose that 10-second margin, 11-second margin. Howard Spooner moving up the order, and everybody else as well, as Daniel Brown's car drops down because it's stuck in the gravel.
And we do have a mandatory pit stop in this race. It's 6 minutes away before the pit window opens, so for any drivers hoping for an opportunity to dive into the pits during a safety car, that might be a little way away, but it might well help them. It's a mandatory pit stop with a 60 seconds stationary in the pits, everybody the same, so there's no advantage or disadvantage.
Daniel Brown bailing out and trying to find a way across the tyres. What you don't want to do is put your foot in them because they are absolutely full of water. It's the British summer. We all know, as UK residents, what the summer has been like. And for those of you who don't live in the UK, this is what most of our summer has looked like, to be honest. There's been a few nice days, but it has been predictably British. And the safety car has been scrambled. The moment the car went off there, I think there was really no question that was going to be the case. You're going to have to get a vehicle into the gravel trap. And if one car can go off there, it's absolutely not guaranteed that a whole host more can't go off there either. So safety car will come out. Now, whether the pit lane will be open during the safety car or not, that might be a little bit further down in the Motor Racing Legends handbook than we have scoped so far.
Yes, it will be open, but it's 5 minutes or thereabouts away from the window, so it's a couple of laps at this safety car speed at least.
Well, great view there of one of our Rover SD1s. There are a couple of the V8 Rovers here. Alfredo Valle in that Marlborough liveried car. I'm afraid the Brown and Geeson car of Daniel Brown very firmly buried. That's the end of the race for that car. Fortunately for these guys, this is their only race of the weekend. So, safety car is out. This is the safety car. It is not a Ferrari 250 short wheelbase. It looks very much like a Ferrari 250 short wheelbase, not exactly like, so this is not a copy of, but this is a spiritual evocation, if you like, of a 250. So it is built by RML. 30 of these cars will be manufactured for extremely fortunate and rather well-heeled clients, based on a 550 or 575 Maranello chassis, so front engine, V12, and a beautiful hand-built body with all the modern accoutrements inside. Luxurious, drop-dead gorgeous, and extremely dynamically able, as you expect from RML, a team, an engineering lineup that has been so renowned for its chassis dynamics. It's an absolutely beautiful thing. I did warn you beforehand that with the rain we ought to look out for Nissan Skylines. When the Skyline went racing in Group A in Australia, it was quickly named Godzilla, a fire-breathing monster from Japan. There's the reference. And Rick Wood already up to 5th place from 12th on the grid. In the dry, hampered by the extra weight, not just of the four-wheel drivetrain, but also the way the regs were written. Because it had all-wheel traction, it was required to be heavier. And there's our race leader. Safety car picked up the first car, which was one of our Rovers. And there's the Chevy Camaro as well. And that car, that's going to be a big handful because it's got plenty of thumping torque and 1960s suspension rather even than 1980s or 1990s. So, yeah, that's going to be a bit of a brute. Now, remind me, who won this race last year? Was it Wim Kiel?
Yes, in the Capri.
13th place. Now, last year, the Cologne Capri of Wim Kiel, who's currently in 13th place, was one of the last pit stoppers. And because of the regs last year, the really quick cars spent a minute longer stationary than a lot of the other cars. And so Wim, to his surprise, our surprise and everybody else's, found himself as the race leader in the closing stages. And again, I think that was after a safety car and rain and stuff as well. So it was a bit of a topsy-turvy race. He was a very surprised winner. You just saw a wave by there by the safety car for a couple of the cars that were stuck behind him but in front of the leader. So now the safety car has Paul Mensley, our race leader, behind him. Mensley in that black Sierra Cosworth coming from 3rd on the grid, and the BMW CSL. Do we know if it's Simon Watts or Alex Bunker? I thought it was Simon Watts that was due to
Alex Bunker.
It was Alex who started,
Alex started, yeah.
So there is the BMW CSL in 2nd place.
And we were told Paul Mensley was starting his own car, the Netcom sponsored car, not a sponsorship that was terribly familiar to us in the UK, but that's a Murray Carter livery from the Australian Touring Car Championship in 1989.
And we think Michael Caine started the red Cosworth in 3rd place, do we?
That's correct. Yep, Michael Caine.
Again, another Aussie sponsorship livery in my head, and nobody's corrected me yet, so I might even be correct on this. I have that as a sort of Dick Johnson Aussie touring car livery, but again, stand to be corrected. 4th place is the Cologne Capri of Mike Manning.
Mike Manning's in the Texaco Sierra.
Oh no, so the Camaro, not the Cologne Capri, Camaro is sort of out of place, having been lapped. So again, the deal with the safety car is we don't have a full field wave by of cars.
That's interesting. Michael Caine is waving out of the window.
Yeah, he's waving the Camaro by.
That may be because he inadvertently passed the Camaro some point in the spray and is just putting things right, because that's not allowed. But if it was a genuine mistake, if he can put it right, all the better.
Then you've got the Eggenberger Sierra, and that is Mike Manning, and right behind him is Rick Wood. Okay, so pit window is open, and Julian Thomas has just dropped another couple of spots. So does that mean he's gone into the pit lane? No, not yet.
No, well, we're over that pit lane. We've got 1 or 2 cars in, but...
Well, they came in earlier. Okay, here is our first pit caller and our second pit caller. So Darren Fielding in the BMW E30 M3 comes in. So too, critically, does Rick Wood, who will hand over to Rick Wood. So, and this is... without being facetious, this is actually an advantage of being the sole driver. Not only do you get to do the whole race, you bear the whole cost, you get to do the whole race, but second drivers now are going to come out onto a track of which they have no knowledge. So they don't know how wet it is, where the puddles are, how much grip or how little grip there is. The advantage is that they'll join the safety car queue. The disadvantage with that being that the car will mist up again, because it's now been stationary misting up and won't go at any speed for a minute or two. But the other thing behind the safety car is that, Alistair, they're not going quickly. They won't have any feel for the track, and when they are released, assuming they are released from the safety car, that's going to be double jeopardy as well, because the car will be a bit misted up. They haven't got much experience of the car, and they're not going to get a feel for the track. So having been in the car is a definite advantage.
Yes, it is. As the Sierra is recovered rather ingraciously. We saw a quick pit lane camera shot there of the number 88 Capri. There it is again, and that's Gary Pearson stood waiting for his brother John to come in the Cavalier. But the Capri number 88 there by Richard Kent, solo drive, is a very original car built by the British Broadspeed firm for Ford, and raced here in the Tourist Trophy by Andy Rouse. Yeah,
he can't get out because the Toyota Corolla is in front of him. That is an ex-British Saloon Car Championship winning car, in fact, in the hands of Chris Hodgetts. Won in the under 1600cc category. Not in that livery, but that is the same car. Then became a rally car. They were quite good fun rally cars, because it was a nice, well-balanced rear-wheel drive car. There was quite a few of those rallied in small capacity rallying, and then has been recovered and converted back into a race car. So our leaders stay out, but Rick Wood, again, having completed his pit stop, will join the tail of an ever-shortening, you suppose, safety car queue, because eventually all of these drivers will peel off into the pit lane.
Yes, absolutely right. And I think if I was these leading drivers, I'd probably come in on this lap, because it's only a 15-minute window. Sounds plenty of time, but if there is a further delay for whatever reason, they might miss the pit window. with a very slow lap. So they're coming down the Wellington Straight now, which means they'll be shortly approaching the pit entry just after Luffield, and I'm expecting to see these call in.
The other thing, of course, is that the safety car lap is about a 4-minute lap rather than a 2.5-minute lap. So there will only be 3 safety car laps in the pit window, effectively. You might want to avoid the initial rush. The problem is, especially if you're leading, you don't know how many cars behind you have ducked in yet. So it might be nobody, it might be everybody. You are sort of a little bit on a wing and a prayer.
And assuming your pit stop goes to plan, the minimum stationary time is 60 seconds, but you also, here they come, you also have to count the in and out time from pit in to pit out, which is 20.2.
Now then, somebody decided not to come in yet. That's the Michael Caine, Dave Bartram car. It stays out behind the safety car. They have not yet stopped. Mensley and Lyon, Buncombe, Watson, all the rest have, but that Red Sierra did not come in.
When he was running successful GT and touring car teams, Dave Bartram was an arch strategist. So I wonder whether he's just sort of put in place a Dave Bartram strategy. You stay out, Michael. I'll stay here in the dry.
And you know what? If he's there and there's nobody in his mirrors, then he'll be going, yep, bingo stingo, I've done it perfectly. The problem is, he will come out at the tail of a very, very, very long queue of cars. PBE, Pat Blakeney-Edwards, waiting to take over the first drive of his weekend. There's the Camaro.
Yeah, he didn't look incredibly happy about Gregor Fiskin not coming in on that lap. It looked like he was discussing with the team, well, he should have come in. That may be the case. Maybe Gregor missed the pit entry. And
the problem is that you are going to be right at the tail of a massive queue of cars all throwing water in the air. And you may well be on your own, because the cars that stopped earlier will be back in the safety car queue earlier, and the cars that hadn't stopped will have peeled off in front of them. So I think it's probably right to be frustrated in these conditions. Is that lights off of the safety car? It is. We are about to go back to green.
That is a huge disadvantage to Michael Caine and Dave Bartram, because when they come round, the safety car will peel in, and they will have to do their pit stop. And you might be confused now, why is he going in that pit lane?
Ready to go back to green flag racing. The safety car has pulled off. Pit stops have been underway, but the Michael Caine, Dave Bartram, Sierra Cosworth has stayed out, and that is looking like a tactical error. Everybody else has stopped and is starting to rejoin the circuit, but their rivals were all going very slowly behind the safety car. When our current leaders stop, everybody else will be going a little bit less slowly in the wet weather conditions than they were behind the safety car. And here you can see, look, he's already catching drivers who have just taken over their cars and are not going quickly because they've got no experience of the track. How they dig this one out of the fire is going to be very interesting. We've got 27.5 minutes of the race remaining, a 50-minute race, and they've got a lot of time in which to recover lost ground. It may not all be over, but they definitely have not made the best of the situation.
Definitely not, no. With the safety car peeling in at the international pits, and the drivers who haven't done a pit stop needing to get round to the national pits, there is a very large disadvantage. The pit window is still open. It's open for another 6 minutes or so, so it's not a time problem, it's just loss of track position.
Again, we're going to look and see where the Sierra Cosworths that dominated qualifying are compared to their rivals. There are a few more cars that have yet to stop. In second place is car number 53, and that is the Capri of last year's surprise race winner, Wim Kuil. In comes one of our BMW E30 M3s. Skylines do have race-winning form in endurance racing. Nissan Skyline won the Spa 24 Hours back in 1991, driven by Anders Olofsson, David Brabham and Naoki Hattori. And this should be the weather in which the Skylines go well. So we need to look for particularly the Calsonic car of Rick Wood. There's Darren Fielding, Steve Soper's car back out. Darren Fielding driving that solo this weekend. But Soperman sharing car number 5 with Toby Partridge. We saw that Toby started the car. That's the Fina Bastos liveried M3.
And that's sitting pretty well, actually, given that, as Steve explained, the driver, the owner of the car, has very little experience, but it's sitting in 13th place.
He must have been relatively happy to see the safety car, I think, and to see that it stayed out until the pit window opened. Okay, great, I can put Soperman in for the other half and see where he gets to. Well, there is the skyline. That's the Calsonic skyline of Rick Wood, and he was heading into the top 5 before the safety car came out. Daniel Brown was dragged backwards out of the gravel, but he was in the Brown and Gammon's Sierra Cosworth, so he may well have continued in the race.
I've noticed on our timing screen, and I didn't look out of the window, but on the timing screen it's showing the number 41 Sierra as not having done a pit stop.
Right.
And it can't, it must be on the next lap he's going to do it then, because he needs to do it before the
Is
pit
the pit window still open? Well,
yes, it is.
Our Broadspeed Capri is buried in the gravel, and Mike Manning's Eggenberger Sierra has also gone rally crossing, unintentionally. Oh, it's going to be a long, hard day for the marshals. Is this the time for me to try and sell the idea of being a marshal to you? It's possibly not, but they are a great band of brothers and sisters who volunteer for their jobs and keep racing safe. The Broadspeed Capri, though, is going to bring out the second safety car of the race. Michael Caine and Dave Bartram's Sierra is now in the pit lane. So is the Warsteiner BMW 3-litre CSL. That has come in as well. The Esso liveried M3 has also come in. So our last few pit stoppers, I think, are in. In fact, the Cosworth hasn't come in yet. The Mark III Capri has come in. And this is, whoa. See the front wheels completely locked. Driver desperately trying to get the steering to work, but at that stage, it can either slow down or steer. Been there, done that. The Camaro has also had a looping half spin. Oh, and there's the Mark III Capri. The safety car is coming out. No surprise, I'm afraid, when cars start to get abandoned around the side of the circuit. That's not the Broadspeed Capri that came out of the gravel. It's another one of our Cologne Capris. But the Camaro seems to be a little bit beached. That's the Bill and Freddie Shepherd run car. Ex-Frank Gardner machine. Frank Gardner, one of the absolutely classic Aussie battler kind of racing drivers. If there was ever a driver to grab a car by the scruff of the neck, Frank Gardner is right up on your wish list, isn't he?
And 1967 and 68 British Saloon Car Championship, it was called then, British Saloon Car Champion. Driving Fords, a Falcon and a Cortina and an Escort in the latter half of 1968.
Well, safety car is out, and you can see that it's picked up a couple of BMWs. Not quite sure who our actual race leader is at the moment, because it should be Michael Caine, Dave Bartram. What we're not seeing, they have not made a pit stop yet, no, have they? So, is the pit window still open?
Yeah, 1 minute 50 seconds to go in the pit window.
Okay.
They should be able to make it round, but this is exactly the situation we were briefly talking about earlier, is that there's such slow laps that you can miss the pit window because you can't get back to the pit lane entry in time. There
is often a codicil run in the regulations that if the safety car is out and that prevents you from being able to exploit the safety car, the pit window, then through no fault of your own, you may be able to do so later. But whether that applies here or not entirely sure. I think they, and again, you know, having not stopped behind the first safety car, they're obviously clearly trying to push as far away as they could from the rest of the field before taking that green flag pit stop, and then they have been caught out by a second safety car. From Richard Hay, Dick Johnson and Johnny Bow led the Tourist Trophy at Silverstone for quite a while, as we see the red coat Cosworth finally come in to make its pit stop with 40 seconds on the clock. That's either luck or judgment, and I'm not going to call on that. That's either brilliance or skin of their teeth.
And the leaders are in as well. So they finally come in. Michael Caine, number 41, the red Sierra, handing over to Dave Bartram within the pit window.
Yeah, Dick Johnson and Johnny Bow not just coming over to race in the Tourist Trophy in the Group A era against the other Sierra Cosworth, but it introduced another Australian to the UK, because coming out as part of their crew to the UK was a man who then went on to found TOCA. Alan Gow, I believe, came over for the first time with the crew and made quite an impression after that. I may be wrong, he might have come before. Andrew Dean, thank you. Brown and Geeson, Brown and Gammons, yes, Brown and Geeson. Brown and Gammons, of course, Ron Gammons' MG Preparation Company, not Daniel Brown's Sierra Cosworth. Glad to see so many motor racing fans watching around the world. And we heard earlier from Leilani Sena, who has created, there's the Dick Johnson and Johnny Bow. I knew I recognised the livery, and yes, there are things in the back of your head, Alistair, that you say sometimes, particularly in the back of my head, and then even as the sentence is coming out, you go, is that a fact, or has my brain just made that up? But it is Dick Johnson and Johnny Bow car. And in that case, very possibly raced in the Tourist Trophy in the 90s. Yeah, so as well as Leilani Sena being here, who was due to go out yesterday in Honda NSXs owned by her uncle Ayrton, nephew Bruno Senna is here as well. Bruno, as everybody will know, raced here in the British Formula 3 Championship. In fact, he won at Silverstone in British F3, I believe. Again, that's a fact out of the back of my brain, the filing cabinet of which is not well organised, but I do have that in my head. Raced here in British F3, spent a lot of time racing in the UK, not as much time living here as his uncle did, but has raced in World Endurance Championship, Formula E and all sorts of other categories. But he is here this weekend, and hopefully today will be driving his uncle's first Formula 1 car, Tolman Hart TT183B Chassis 5, and that is the car with which Ayrton Senna made his Formula 1 debut in the Brazilian Grand Prix in 1984. And of course, one of the races in which Ayrton really made his name was the streaming wet Monaco Grand Prix in that year, where in the much unfancied Tolman, he very nearly overhauled Alain Prost to win the race. Fans of a certain German racing driver argued that he was closing even faster in his Moredo Tyrrell and would have passed them all if Jackie Hicks hadn't thrown the checkered flag early. The race was red flagged early. In the end, Prost won it. Senna finished in second, and Stefan Beloff was third. But he certainly made a name for himself with that Tolman, and Bruno Senna will hopefully get a chance to drive it in not necessarily dissimilar conditions this afternoon. Safety car remains out here with 17 minutes still on the clock, so there is the potential to go back to racing once the cars have been recovered and back onto terra firma.
And in terms of the shakeout after the pit stops, as we expected, the red Sierra, Caine and Bartram has dropped back, but interestingly, Darren Fielding in one of the BMWs has taken over the lead with a 27.5 second lead. Now, that means nothing in a sense that they're all in a line and they can't overtake. But it does mean something, because there's clearly a lot of cars between him and Rick Wood.
Well, there's a lot of ground between him and Rick Wood, because I think he's the second car in that queue. The first car, the BMW CSL.
No, that's the.
I
think that's another of our BMWs.
So that's
Bartlett.
Yeah,
Nick Bartlett.
Okay, we're still waiting to recover the Camaro, so we will have, and you can see why this has to be a safety car, and drivers have to be not catching up the safety car quickly. because it is streaming wet. In fact, it's wetter than at any stage so far today. And the rescue vehicle out there digging out the Shepherd's Camaro. There is our race leader, so that is car number 8, Darren Fielding. So the next Steve Soper car. Now then, here we go. Right behind him is the ex-David Leslie Acuria Cos Cavalier. Now that's behind him on the road.
24th position.
Yes. That's a long way further back than sort of I expected it to be.
It's actually in a different class.
Yes, I know, I know.
And it's not really competitive in the sense that it wasn't as allowed to be as well developed as some of the other cars.
No, indeed. 2 litre, it's early 2 litre super touring, right? Where, rather than 2.5 litre full fat DTM cars, but less power and front wheel drive. Again, you know, had he been in that Cavalier, David Leslie would have not been able to stop grinning when he woke up and saw the weather this morning. It would have been grinning even more as it got heavier and heavier, because he would have fancied his chances. The Pearson's not quite in that position, and in fact because it doesn't really comply to the regulations of any of the classes. It's an invitational class car. Coming into the pit lane at one of the Sierras, well, it's clearly got a little bit of an electrical issue, judging by the indicators, and not all the lights are on.
Might put a wager on Rick Wood to catch and pass Darren Fielding, depending on how long we get. We're obviously time ticking down, but Rick Wood has lots and lots of power, but he also has a little wheel on the dashboard, and he can just turn that left or right to turn down the power.
Oh, I thought everybody's got a little wheel on the dashboard.
Oh,
that's how you steer.
No, that's a bigger wheel. This one's a little one, and he can go fully up to 11. With 650 horsepower, or pull it down. And obviously in these conditions I would expect Rick's turned it down to probably in the 400s, which is still plenty.
More than enough. So car number 25 in the pit lane, this is Nick Bartlett in the Fina Sierra Cosworth.
Now the gap first to second has dropped from 27 seconds last time around to 11 seconds.
I beg your pardon, that's 251. I was going to say, it's in the entry list of the BMW E3. That's Alistair Davidson and Alistair Davidson Jr.'s Fina liveried Sierra Cosworth. So I think they've called it a day. And now this car was out of position. Why was it out of, have they not stopped?
They've had lots of technical problems with that car. It didn't really do qualifying.
So that was behind the safety car, this CSL.
But the lead gap has dropped to 11.5 seconds. So clearly the train behind the safety car is squeezing up. And if we get back to racing with sufficient laps available, Rick Wood is in second place in the Nissan four-wheel drive, the Skyline GTR. Darren Fielding in the two-wheel drive BMW.
I would think another 4 or 5 minutes would probably see the flatbed safely back behind the barriers. And assuming that the Camaro is the last, the big Healy, by the way, is not past this. Assuming that there's nobody else left to be rescued, well, there's our race leader. And how far back is Darren Fielding? I think we might need to sort of hold the shot on the straight and see where the gap is at.
Yeah.
Because we're only going to get that gap updated at the end of each of the laps.
And Rick Wood is not allowed to overtake cars unless directed to do so by the clerk of the course. So even if he wanted to just gently close up on Darren Fielding, if there's somebody between him and Darren, and I suspect there will be, he can't do it. The other car is, if not going as quickly as Darren, is holding Rick Wood back.
I'm not sure who's got the pleasure of driving our SWB safety cars today, but blimey, that's jeopardy, isn't it? An absolutely irreplaceable hand-built car in these conditions. Well, here is the train.
I haven't seen Rick Wood
with the
yet.
2002. I thought I saw a dark car. There he is. No, that's not him. That's the Escort.
So where is Rick?
He is a long way back. That's more than 11 seconds.
And there's one of the Sierras in there that we know is, in theory, ahead of Rick.
Is that David Tomlin, the black car?
Yeah. No, Tomlin's is white.
Oh, it's green. Yeah, no. So It's not Julian Thomas, is it? So who is in there? Oh no, that's the Tysan Advan Skyline. So that's not Rick Wood's car. That is Nick Strong's car that qualified a long way further back.
I think I may have. It's Rick Wood in the top of our shot now.
Good
with the
Lord.
red windscreen.
Okay, well, there's the end of the argument. It is much, much wetter than it was earlier, and the race director, I think quite possibly rightly, has decided, ooh, that's a very big puff of smoke coming out of Paul Mensley and Michael Lyon's car.
He's just warming his rear tyres, thinking they're going to restart, but
no, I'm not sure he is. It's puffing out a lot of smoke from the side exhaust, but it is a red flag, so the race, now, is that suspended, or is there the option to restart it? 11 minutes remains on the clock. The clock has stopped, so that means that the race has been suspended and may not necessarily be abandoned. We'll wait for further from our race directors. And again, you know, this massive clump of cars, to release all those with, you know, 1600cc twin cam Lotus Cortinas and 504 horsepower Sierras in amongst them is it's going to be hard work for the quicker drivers in dry conditions with decent visibility, and a bit harder than that again. So red flag with just under 11 minutes remaining on the clock. And again, never going to argue with the race director for erring on the side of caution. And is he leading them into the pit lane? Yes, he is. And the car behind is not quite sure where to go. That wasn't actually Darren Fielding right behind. I think that was another of the M3s. Yeah, not sure that's actually car number 8.
No, it's Nick Bartlett that's come in.
Okay, so that's 25 cars. So Darren Fielding actually wasn't behind the safety car in that yawning chasm to the next clump. He was in the next clump somewhere.
Which explains why it was 11 seconds and we couldn't work out where Rick Wood was.
Too many flipping Fina BMWs.
All with Soper on the side.
I know, that's absolute blasphemy, and Toby Moody will give me a dead leg for that the next time he sees me. But more than you would have seen on one racetrack in period, definitely.
There is no, that's not. Is that Darren? It's 44 on the
yeah,
car.
I think at the back
here,
I think
yes.
that's the one. That's car number 8, just coming in behind the Cologne Capri. Well, glad to see so many people here at Silverstone. I know an awful lot of fans will have bought their tickets and booked their weekends months and months and months ago, and unfortunately, you know, I've been here when it's been splitting the flags. I've been here where you just are soaked to the skin before you even get out of the car park. So today is one of those days. Hopefully tomorrow will be a lot better. The forecast is that we should stop seeing rain at the end of the morning. So next race out is due to be a double race. The Woodcote Trophy and Stirling Moss Trophy race. So the plan is not to send single-seaters out in this weather. And I have to say, again, that seems to be a very sensible option. Well, our potential race winner has just come underneath us. Red flag has gone to checker, so we are not going to see any further laps, I'm afraid, from the Adrian Flux Trophy. And that's rather stymied Rick Wood's hopes of winning. So it will be victory for car number 8, the BMW E30 M3 of Darren Fielding, qualified in 11th place. He is our race winner. You're making a note of this, Bryn. It's Darren Fielding. So he's our race winner. Second place, Rick Wood. He comes in the Calsonic Skyline. There he is right behind. And third place is the man who started on the outside of the front row of the grid, David Tomlin, in his RS500 Sierra Cosworth. So there he is. Good. And a long way further back are under 2 litre touring car winners. are Max Lynn and Rowan Lundy, I think,
Number 8.
in 113.
Yes, I mean he was leading at the time of the
yeah,
flag.
so
yes.
that's the Lotus Cortina. All the Lotus Cortinas in this race are basically white with a green flash, which was the factory Lotus Cortina racing colours. So one of them was there, and I believe it is Sean Lynn's son Max and his mate Rowan Lundy. So Max and Rowan win the under 2 litre touring car category, and not by much either. So there we go. That, unfortunately, an abbreviated end to the race. 2 safety cars and an awful lot more rain than anybody really wanted, liked or enjoyed. But we're still nice and warm and dry in our commentary box, aren't we, Alistair?
We are.
We are. Bryn's not. He's in the pit lane. Bryn?
Yeah, I'm not all that dry, but neither's Darren. But Darren, out there on track, first of all, congratulations, you've taken the victory, but it's not the way you'd want to take a win, I know.
Oh, I'll take it. I will take it. I'm not kidding. You could not see a car in front of you. It was that bad. After the safety car, actually, after the pit stop, actually, it was worse. Listen, you need a little bit of luck in racing, and I'll take it today.
The race has ended slightly shorter than we'd hoped it would be, 11 minutes or so shorter. But yeah, I mean, you've given us a bit of an insight into the conditions you were trying to deal with just out there. Were you trying to worship the end of race gods to get this one done early?
I wasn't too upset to see the red flag come out, to be honest with you. It's always nice to keep racing, but when I was in first place, I was quite happy to see the red flag.
You started way back on row 6 there, and 11th. Actually, I think you won up from there as well. So you had your work cut out, but when it comes down to a race like this, you just have to deal with the situation and stay out there. That's trickier, isn't it? Because when you're not going full pelt, it's easier to let go.
You've just got to in a way, take your time and be careful. If you go off, you're going to be nowhere. Just keep it on the track, keep a decent pace without going over the top, and luckily that's paid off.
Podium next, and that's in the rain, but well done.
Thank you very much.
Keep it on the grey stuff, son. And it's such an easy rule and so hard to discipline yourself because, of course, you want to use the performance in the car. But congratulations to Darren Fielding. Again, Rain the Great Leveller, the power advantage of the RS500 Sierra Cosworth's negated by the weather. In fact, it became a power disadvantage, and I'm sure everybody had turned their boost down as much as they possibly could if it's adjustable. Well, Bryn has got our second place man, Rick Wood, who would have liked another 10 minutes, I'm sure, to try and exploit the four-wheel drive of his Nissan Skyline.
Thanks very much, Martin. We've got weird drips right over where we are right now, so I'm trying to get Rick into the dry as best as I can. We just spoke to Darren there about his race and how tricky it was, the conditions out there, and he said it was just treacherous, couldn't see anything.
I've raced for many years. I don't want to add how many years I've raced. That's probably the hardest race for weather we've ever done. I'm lucky to have four-wheel drive, but I was aquaplaning everywhere because I've got that much camber on. But wow, that was tricky. Just, cars were going off left and right, and it was just, you had to feel the car, really feel the car, and many people didn't.
It was a race that never really stabilised, wasn't it? Because every single time there was a moment of maybe there was a bit of a bit of on-track action. We had to have a safety car because of the offs.
Yeah, if the safety car had let everyone past, I would have been on Darren's bum on that last lap, and it could have been a different story. But that's racing, and you get stuck behind a certain slower car. But all the cars are in one piece. That's the main thing. Well, most of them, and Darren's tried really hard this year. He deserves it. I might deserve it a bit more, but he definitely deserves it.
You'll settle for second, I'm sure, but we're going to have to go out into the rain in a bit and get a trophy, but well done, Rick, well done.
Thank you very much.
Great stuff. Back to you, Martin.
Yeah, it is one of the toughest things, I think, to do in a race car, is to try and balance speed against grip, and as the weather fluctuates, and it really did in the race, as Rick said, very much wetter. It looked much wetter. I mean, here now, perversely, it actually looks much drier than it did just 5 minutes ago. But it's still raining, and Bryn is still hiding under the shelter.
I am. I'm in a cave here, it seems, Martin. Now, I've got the man who came home in third place here, David Tomlin, actually started second on the grid. So of all the drivers that are on the podium, you started near the top end.
Yeah, but I went backwards for a while I was, but I didn't go into the gravel like a lot of other people did. So caution worked for me in the end, and but that was very difficult, and the conditions were actually getting worse there at the end. I think even if there'd been a green flag, we wouldn't have gone much faster.
Well, that's the thing. We look at the conditions right now, don't we? And the rain has started to ease a little bit. There are some very nasty dark clouds above us. The race has eased a fair bit, but the rain, has eased a fair bit. But actually, looking out there, it's not getting any drier at all. You're not moving any of the water off the surface.
There's still a few rivers across the track, going on to Hanger Straight, for example. And a car that caused the last safety car was spun probably in that river. But okay, you have to be more cautious at those points. But yeah, that was difficult, to say the least, especially with turbo car, because it's difficult to stop spinning your wheels.
Well, you managed it well. You've got yourself a podium, so well done.
Thank you very much.
So there you go, all of our top three surviving by the skin of their teeth. Nobody romped this one. Darren Fielding in the BMW M3 tops the podium ahead of the four-wheel drive Skyline of Rick Wood, and David Tomlin in his Sierra Cosworth RS500 in third place. Our early leaders, the Mensley Lions, Sierra in fourth ahead of Mike Manning and Howard Spooner. So looking a long way further back down the order, our under 2 litre touring car race winners finished in 28th place. That was the better, or the best, of the Lotus Cortina group, and that was Max Lynn and Rowan Mundy. So they were in a little separate race of their own, but everybody was in a race of their own. Essentially, it was man against the weather here, and trying to guide your car around. Last year's winner, Wim Coyle, didn't quite come out on top of the pile in the same surprising way as he did in 2023. So that's the first race of the slightly wet start to the 2024 Silverstone Festival here, completed the Adrian Flux Trophy for MRL Historic Touring Cars. Well done to everybody who made it around. It was definitely not easy motoring. Some of the names that had issues in the standing water are very, very experienced drivers, and that just gives an indication of how tough it was.